Links to other important videos are in the description, please check them out. Chapters are also in the description because this video is ridiculously long, and since it's long, it's become too large to edit, but I hope it helps.
Hello, how's it going? My name is Jax, J-A-X, yes, that's my real name, not the point of this video. Hi, so I have been playing EVE Online for maybe about, 7 months or so. In total, not all at the same time, actually. I have often been completely just confused by the game and, lost as to what I'm supposed to do. Feeling that there's like a fun game in there somewhere, but just completely like missing it at some points. There's almost no good tutorials on YouTube that teaches you like how to play the game and what the differences are between this MMO and others. Now there are some pretty good videos done by a guy named Seamus Dunuhue of EVE University.
Hey, look.
I'm gonna try my hand at helping new players basically get into it, because it's a great game and it's amazing. Even people inside of the game don't even call the learning curve a learning curve. They call it the learning wall and they joke about it. But it's true, and as a new player, once you run into this learning wall, you're like, why would I play this game for? This is stupid. So I'm going over like the most basics of basic-y basicness. Simple question, what is EVE Online? EVE Online is a hardcore MMO. And I'm not using the word hardcore to be like, oh, it's hardcore, like people that think that Call of Duty is a good game, and, other people that give me a headache. So what makes this MMO different from other ones? Let me go over the specifics of what hardcore means to me and why I'm using it in this sense. It is possible for your character to die, completely die, and send you all the way back to the very beginning. There are no like trash items, and I'm doing air quotes as I say the word trash. There are certain low-level items that will drop off of enemies, NPC enemies that you kill in EVE. They're not necessarily trash items. You can't just vendor it. There aren't any vendors. All of the people in the game that can sell and move money around are actual real players, real people that have trained to use those skills to buy orders off the market. To put it in World of Warcraft terms, everything that you're trying to sell goes up on the auction house, and if nobody buys it, then well. And there's no option to do anything else, so it's full market, but full market only. A game where the players own all the corporations, and it's sort of like factions and stuff. I mean, in this sort of thing, like if I hover over like the sort of what would be races and all that kind of stuff, and there are a certain number of NPC owned like factions and corporations and stuff, but they don't really do a whole lot unless you're just doing like missions and storyline and stuff. But it's a really PvP centric game, and so anybody that starts their own corporation or guild, if you're into that, can basically declare war on any other faction or guild, and so you don't necessarily have to have just one alignment or alliance, I guess. Like, so if I'm over here and I'm a Galente, which I almost always am, if I start a Galente character, I can run missions for the Caldari state, or, over in the Amar Empire or something, and don't have to necessarily worry that that's going to, like, cause problems. It might, once you get a little higher up and you actually start dealing with different, warfare and factions and all that kind of stuff, but it's player controlled. So I can join my friend's guild and join a different guy's guild, and they call them corporations, but that's basically how it works. And if a corporation declares war on another corporation or guild or whatever, then those players can freely attack each other, and it really does change the game space. I should mention though too that the actual map that exists within the game is able to be changed by the players. So again, that's really sort of hard to do, but it's really interesting and makes it what I would call hardcore. Players control and manufacture virtually everything other than the very basic starting things. There are some amount of items that are like manufactured by NPCs that you can buy off the market, but those are basically just to let the game function. And beyond that, everything is made by a player, produced by a player, the resources were gathered by a player, Those resources were built into something useful by a player, put onto a market by a player, bought off the market by a player, used by a player, and destroyed by another player. So it's very sort of realistic, in a kind of way, again with the air quotes that you can't see. Realistic. That's why I would call the game hardcore. It's really different than virtually everything else, which is, an actual definition of what hardcore would be. Very different from other MMOs is that it has a skill-based progression system, and I'll get more into that as I actually do it and show you how to use it and show you how to manage it and all of that kind of stuff. First of all, it takes a long time to actually do like any really cool stuff, but as far as the actual game mechanics and playing it go, it's just, it's about equivalent to any other kind of system with an experience bar system, or my least favorite sort of pay to win kind of things. So it takes a long time to actually get anything cool, but the reason that's kind of a cool thing is when you actually get to the goal that you had set, it makes you feel a lot more engaged with the game, because it's not so much a game, it's actually kind of happening to you. An interesting part about the skill-based system is that you're leveling up or gaining new skills even if you're not logged in. So long as your account is active, you're always gaining skills, so long as you're clever enough to remember to manage your skills properly. Another reason it's different, it's a spaceship MMO, so your character, air quotes, character, is your ship. So it's possible to change your ship, and it's possible to change your character in that sense, but it's also possible to lose your ship. If somebody destroys your ship, then, well, it's destroyed, and you've got to go buy another one or build one yourself. So it's a really strong emphasis on realistic mechanics. If you lose your ship, you lose your ship. The game's not just gonna like res you. You don't just like have a spirit healer, and you gotta invest and go buy a new ship. Other sort of emphasis on realistic mechanics would be the spaceships themselves have like a tracking speed for the turrets, and if you're standing in one spot just shooting at another ship that's standing in one spot, the calculations for hit and miss ratios are very different than if you're both flying around and activating like different things that make you go faster or slow the other person down. For now, just remember that there's a decent emphasis on realistic mechanics. The game offers a million different things you can do, but the variety is insane. You can do like planetary stuff where you send like a station down to a planet, and with that gain resources from the planet and use that to like play your character. You can be an asteroid miner and go mine stuff. You can take asteroids and refine them into other things. You can use those refined things to manufacture spaceships and guns and missiles and stuff. You can just be somebody that PvPs and blows up other players' ships, or goes on mission runs and does NPC missions and questing and things. And there's a million different kinds of combat styles even within that, if you want to use rockets or blasters or machine guns or lasers, or be like kind of a hacker type almost, and they call it e-war or electronic warfare, where you can slow other ships down using like webifiers, or you can mess up their tracking so they can't like shoot you. And there's a million different kinds of things, so the variety is insane, but that is also sort of a detriment to new players, and that's kind of the point that I'm trying to get across by doing this, is making it as simple to understand as possible. So there's a ton of variety, and it's a skill-based system, so those two things together mean that no one character can ever do everything, which is perfect really, but so specializing becomes really important, and having goals for what you want to be able to do becomes pretty important. And there's a lot of different ways that you can play, and switching between them isn't always like beneficial, but if you're not having fun doing one thing, then there's no reason not to switch to something else. Lots of variety. Skill-based means that you can change at any time. I guess the other sort of logistic kind of thing that I should talk about is the subscription. It's a blended kind of subscription. It uses everything from in-game currency to two different kinds of out-game currency, like real sort of money. Once you have your subscription sort of activated, inside of the game you can use the game inside. What would be gold in other MMOs is called ISK, And ISK is just like gold in other games. If you make enough ISK, there's an actual item in the game that will give you more game time, called a plex, or player, or what is it, pilot license extension. So PLEX. You can use real money to buy plexes, which is usually how you would get your subscription to extend into the future. But if you make enough ISK, you can actually buy plexes with ISK as well. And that sets up a really interesting dynamic where people that lose a lot of spaceships, like PvPers who just like blowing up stuff, can buy 3 months worth of game time and sell 2 months of it and then activate one. So, you know, they have a ton of real money inside the game. But because it's skill based, it prevents that from being play to win, like I mentioned, or, you know, buying. What did I say? Play to win? Of course you play to win. Like pay to win. An example would be APB, where I was, in no exaggeration, saw a $120 sniper rifle, 120 US dollars. You buy it with your money and then you have it inside the game, and the sniper rifle was just insane. Like, you could just kill everybody with it. And so having these things where it's like an obvious unfair advantage if you pay real money, that doesn't really exist here, because they can buy all the spaceships they want, but they won't be able to use them until they get the skills, right? You can also, if you're a manufacturer kind of person and you're not really losing a lot of spaceships or need a ton of money, but instead making things, you can actually pay for your subscription by just playing the game enough, which is a really interesting dynamic. And then they have a little bit of what's been kind of popular for the last couple of years, like in the case of League of Legends is probably one of the best examples. They use a microtransaction sort of thing where you can buy, like, you know, costumes and all that other kind of stuff. And they've just added this, really. There's not a whole lot of stuff you can do with it, but you can, like, customize your character, and that uses a different kind of out-game currency that I forget what it's called because I've never used it. That's not super important to the game, but it's included in there, and I'm doing super basics. The final reason why EVE is different from other MMOs is it's been around longer than other MMOs. It's one of the oldest ones that's still going and still has a really, really strong, like, base of people to play it. And whenever they come out with a new expansion, they don't charge you for the expansion. So any of the expansions that they've come out with, it just becomes implemented in part of the game, and everybody gets to play it and enjoy it. Hopefully that helps you understand, before you even get into the game, whether or not you want to play it. If you do, you know, because it's skill based, if you want to try it, you have to do at least a little bit of a commitment, which is kind of weird, especially for the thing. But you know, they give you the 14-day free trials just to anybody who asks. So, you know, at the very least, you can play for 2 weeks and kind of figure out if you want to continue playing it or not. Let's just get right into it, right? Let's play. Let's do it. Let's rock this. Hold up. There's a lot, like I had mentioned. It doesn't really work that way, but so I'm gonna make a new character and just sort of run you guys through what we're doing here.
Once a thriving
I'm not going to bother with any of the story kind of stuff and whatever. Basically the characters all kind of start the same. There's not a lot of variation. There is some, and if that becomes super important to you, like you want to play seriously, you're invited to look that up yourself. I'm gonna play an Asian chick. Yeah. My other character, I'll have to show you that. I spent way too long making him look as much like me as possible. So I'm not going to do that here. I'm just going to click randomize a couple times on each of these and see what comes up. Whoa, clown face. Let's see. Some shades. Asian chick. Let's go with a really blonde Asian chick. With green eyes. Sweet. Your makeup has to change though. It's already driving me nuts. Too much yellow. Black. Sweet. Alright. Since that's not the point of this. And you guys are more than welcome to mess with this all you want. So once you actually make your character, at the moment there isn't really a lot that you do with your character. It's pretty much just to get into this window here where you set up your character and you can change the lighting and stuff, and then take pictures basically. And this is the picture that goes in your license, so other people can see you and kind of remember who you are. And you can change expressions and make them do all sorts of stuff. You can turn her lip up and make her look like she's mad, right? And do some eyebrows and whatever. Yeah, that's fine. That's not the point of what we're doing here. Sweet. And your name will be John Nathan. Nathan Go Doodle. Sweet. Family name. Randomize. Garimoko. Cool. And you can read all this kind of stuff if you want. If you want to go back, you can use these little tabs here. Little information boxes and stuff. And yeah, that's fine for me. Yes, that's great. Jonathan Gangoogadoodle. Sweet. Alright, here I am in my little pod. Dun 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 dun. Voice account initializing. Alright, so this pod is kind of you more than your ship. Like I said before, your whatever ship you're piloting is sort of you. And that's very true in this game. This pod, if your ship gets blown up, you end up inside of this pod. And as part of this pod, like if the pod gets blown up, you die. If you don't have a clone that you've like set up, then you lose all the skills that you'd invested. So I guess first things first, don't get pod killed. And always make sure you have a clone. Always, 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 always remember you have to have a clone somewhere off in the universe. If you don't, you're just begging to be frustrated. And you can do that in this little thing here. There's a little medical bay. You can click on that and buy yourself a clone and do all sorts of stuff. So this basic window is really confusing to people that are unfamiliar with games. It's basically set up to mimic an operating system. So like the game UI almost kind of looks like it's its own operating system, like Windows or something. So this little thing over here, which for whatever reason is called the Neocom instead of just the thingy on the left. Anytime you see little lines like this is how you get into your options. You can click on that and come up with various things. These little lines there. You can also right click on stuff, and you can hover over these and see what they are. And if you've never played this, I suggest you click on at least all of them, at least a couple times till you get familiar with what they are. It's like, oh, inventory, sweet. I can go to my item hanger, and I don't have anything because I just started. My ship hanger. Hey, look, that's my pod. I hope it doesn't get blown up, because that would basically reset me to nothing. And you click on that pod and say, oh, in the cargo bay there's nothing because I just started. Woohoo! Basic, basic, basic. Most of this game is played with the mouse, and in the last year they basically started adding like little keyboard shortcuts and stuff for things. Over on the side here is your agents tab, and Aura is sort of their tutorial agent chick, and you can double click on that and she comes up with, covering the basics. I'm going to skip ahead and assume that you guys have done all of these if you've never done them before. So if you're just playing along with me, go ahead and do these and pause here or just come back to the video later. If you need help, there is a corporation inside of the EVE game space called EVE University, and they have a bunch of YouTube channels. You can just go to YouTube and search EVEU or EVE University, and the guy that probably has the best stuff is named Seamus Dunuhue, and you can, if you get lost doing the tutorial missions or all that kind of stuff, the game takes care of the kind of basics from that point forward, and so that's where I'm going to pick up. Alright, I am back. I've just taken Jonathango Doodlegade Moko through the tutorial missions to sort of see, you know, what they cover versus what I wish they would cover in parts of these. My friends and I have often joked about that the tutorial missions in this game give you just enough information to get yourself into serious trouble. And that's very true. But it's time for me to say goodbye to Jonathango Doodlegade Moko. So, click delete and yes, and you can't delete characters. They make you wait for 10 hours because if you delete your character, you're like seriously deleting a possible large amount of time invested into the game. So you put them into a 10-hour waiting queue before you can delete them to sort of like let you change your mind about deleting them, which I think is brilliant. But so we're gonna take my main character, who I've mentioned I spent way too long trying to make him look as much like me as possible with this like body type and race type and model and stuff. But yeah, so we're gonna go ahead and enter the game here, and again, I'm assuming that at this point you've done enough of the missions to like know how to move the camera and like figure out where you're going and, you know, check out your inventory and be like, oh, I don't know what this is. I can right click on it and go to show info and it'll tell me all the things about it that I need to do. Or if I want to sell this, I can right click on it and go to sell, and, you know, at least rudimentally use the market and stuff. So yeah, tutorial missions. Hopefully you've done all of them, because you should do all of them if you have not. Because they actually provide you with things that are useful in the game for free that otherwise you'd have to buy off the market if you forget to. So yeah, do all the tutorials. That's important. I'm sort of stalling while the game loads. Alright, game is loaded. I'm out in outer space. Check me out, I'm in outer space. Okay, so I'm going to stop my ship right here, just in front of this big station, and sort of show you kind of what's up with the world. Again, I was going to talk about like really basic kind of stuff. And with any game, I am a big fan of customization, so I almost always go into the, you know, push escape and go into the settings and mess with all my shortcuts and mess with all the, you know, stuff that I can mess with. Whoa, Fraps is making that have a hard time. Hopefully that didn't mess something up on your end. So yeah, I have it all set up to what I like to do. And I mentioned there's like keyboard shortcuts and stuff, and I kind of want to talk about that because keyboard shortcuts can save your butt in in a lot of cases. When you're out in open space, you can always just right click on open space and kind of see what's up with the solar system that you're in, and kind of manage stuff that way. This is your overview here, which you should be familiar with since you ran the tutorial missions. You can change a lot of stuff, like what's visible here and how they, you know, sort of blink if it's like a certain kind of enemy character and stuff. People keep leaving the base and blocking my camera. And you can change the colors and all that kind of stuff in the escape menu that I just showed you. But keyboard shortcuts. Like, let's say I want to go to this Stargate here. The little symbol means it's a Stargate, and you just have to memorize this kind of stuff by playing it. And, you know, it does say Stargate over there, so it's not like it's super important, but still. So let's go to Jita, which is, people say Jita, I don't know. I studied Japanese forever, so Jita would be Jita. And you click on it, and it gives you all the, like, things up here that you can do, or you can right click on it and do those same kind of things in this menu. Or kind of recently they've introduced, like, if you hover over them, it'll tell you which keyboard shortcut that like uses that option. And if you just hold down the button, like this one says align to A, and so if you want to align to it, see down here, you hold down the A button, it says align to. So you can go align to this and click on it, and it'll, you know, your ship will align to the gate, which I'm already pointed at, so it's not going to do very much. if you want to stop your ship, like I just did here, it's Control Spacebar to, to tell your ship to stop doing things. And I suggest you look those up, find out which ones are useful for you, and customize whichever ones you think will be useful for you and your time within the game. And you can activate different tabs. Like I have a mining tab here and a general tab that's just like a lot of stuff that's activated. Like it's not really important that I know that these sentry guns are here, so most people that play pretty seriously would, make sure that those don't show up. I don't really care that much because I've never been in like really heavy PvP stuff, considering that I'm like a loner in the game. Most people join those corporations that I was talking about before and then sort of play with other people. I almost exclusively, or in fact I've never once even played with another person in the game, so I am kind of a lone wolf. I like that sort of ring, I'll use that. I'm a lone wolf. Ooh, that's a howl. So yeah, a little bit of keyboard shortcut stuff. Like you can, just push the buttons and she talks a lot when you do stuff. Or, really, 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 really basic kind of stuff. You're like, oh no, I need to go mine an asteroid. I'll right click on this and find an asteroid belt and warp to the asteroid belt. And then click on an asteroid and then target the asteroid and then activate your little mining thing to mine the asteroid. All that kind of stuff. Hopefully you're totally fluent in that and how it works. Overview I've sort of covered a little bit, and targeting, you can click target. The fastest way though is to hold down Control, and then you click on stuff over here, and when you hold down, you failed to target nothing. When you hold down the little button, this little sorter becomes locked here, so you can click on stuff. You can click a bunch of targets and then shoot at them and blah 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 blah, whatever you want to do. And I did want to mention too, there's like a lot of stuff in the tutorial that they tell you that they don't like explain at all. In your first little bits of combat, it's like, approach the thing and shoot it, and so like they make it super easy to do that, but they don't really tell you why. If you're moving, it's harder to hit you with a gun, and that's the really like the most basic way I can put it. There's tons and tons of calculations that people can do with like going in. These are mining turrets, so they're not quite the same, but like you just saw me go here and right click on show info, and then under the attributes tab it'll tell you everything about whatever you're using. And like, however far away you are, optimal range based on, and then usually if you're shooting somebody there will be one that says fall off range, and your optimal range is basically how far you have to be able to like hit them pretty much every time, and your fall off range is where the accuracy starts to get harder to hit them the further away from you they are. And you just got to look at all that kind of stuff. So when you're fighting stuff, you pretty much want to be moving, and there's an orbit button most things, which is usually defaulted to the W key. So you can set your orbiting range to whatever your optimal range is in your ship, and then when you orbit it, you are close enough to it that you should be able to hit it, even though you're moving around. And hopefully, because you're moving around, they won't be able to hit you as often. And that's sort of how you manage like taking damage and dealing damage.
Editor's note: please keep in mind that this example of the orbit key will get you killed in PvP. If you want to figure out how to do that, it's called tackling, and you can look it up.
And so, because of that, I'm now going to move on to skills. In skills, which you can click your little skill bar here and it'll come up. You can hover over it and it tells you that you can use Alt X to pull up your skills queue. You can click on your little licensee guy face and then go over to open training queue to open this window up and see what's going on. But I'm gonna leave this window up and go over to attributes, because these are ridiculously important and the game never tells you anything about them. Like at all. Or at least they didn't during the tutorials that I just saw. So basically, everything that there is to do in the game is determined by a skill somewhere in the game. Say you want to be able to shoot stuff, then you have skills under gunnery, and then you're like, oh, weapon upgrades, or sharpshooting, or motion prediction, or all these kind of stuff. And you can click on them, and it'll tell you what they do. 5% bonus to skill level weapon turret tracking speeds. So your actual turret will move faster in order to get in proper alignment to shoot another spaceship 5% faster. So that's a good one to have. Then you come over to attributes, and it'll tell you which attributes apply, that are important to getting the skill. And it's sort of, sorry, I kind of hiccuped there. So the primary attribute would be perception. So we come over here, and my perception is 18. Right? And then a secondary one is willpower, and you come over here to willpower, and that's 17, which, if I'm not mistaken, is the minimum you can have in a skill. So what does that mean? Who cares, right? Like, I got more intelligence, so I should probably be studying intelligence and whatever it is. For whatever skill you're trying to use, your primary attribute adds this many points per minute, and your secondary will take half of this number of points and add it to this number, right? So perception willpower for me right now would be perception of 18, and then willpower of half of 17, and then as far as I know they round down every minute. And so in order to get this, it'll tell you however many skill points you have and how long it takes. Easy skills have a multiplier of +1. I think the hardest ones have a multiplier of +12, and it literally takes months of real life time to learn to cloak your ship and do stuff like that. So this is extraordinarily important, and the game never tells you anything about it, and it's the one thing that they should tell you how to do, because this is basically how you gain experience points and advance in the game and have fun. And they don't tell you anything about it. So yeah, so you're like, well, holy crap, there's a million skills. If you undo all of these, and I have it sorted, so it's my skills, you can just go to whatever they are and filter stuff. And when you're buying skills off the market, if you come over to the little market thing, if you want to acquire a new skill, you go over to skills, and then you can click show only available if you want. If you're just looking to see what's out there, then uncheck it so everything will show up. And there's a bajillion skills depending on what you want to do in your game. And so you might even, especially when you first start, you're like, well, I don't have any idea what I want to do. It was pretty fun shooting stuff, but maybe I'll try mining. And the only way to figure that kind of thing out is just to try it, which is a little unfortunate, because then oftentimes you'll find that I don't care for mining, I'm going to go back to shooting stuff, or whatever your opinions are. And so you sort of waste time on those skills. And what I'm teaching you here is how not to waste time, right? First of all, you have to figure out what you want to do, and I can't help you with that. So play the game a little bit and figure out what you want to do. And there's a lot of stuff, so just ask people and try it and look up videos. This is super important. Making your skills good and effective and efficient is really important. So this one takes perception, and I only have 18 perception. If I want more perception, I can gain one of the most important skills ever, is called cybernetics. And I always recommend people get cybernetics up as fast as they can when it comes to training skills and stuff, because that's one of the only skills and one of the only things you can do in the game to basically gain experience points faster, or in this case skill points. Because with cybernetics you can plug in implants and augmentations, which basically give you more attributes beyond what you would have normally. So cybernetics is always really important, just so you can plug in these things and get your skills training, 1 point faster per minute, which the ones that take a really long time, you can save yourself like 20 days of time when you get it figured out. And I'm going to show you how to do that, because this is the most basics video that I could think how to make to help people have fun and figure out like what they want to do in the game. If you're totally new, watching me do this is probably like wicked boring, but hopefully you're learning stuff, because it is a learning wall, not a learning curve, and I want you guys to, have fun and enjoy the game. So you got to get over that wall as fast as possible. You will make mistakes. Don't worry about mistakes. Everybody makes them, so you just make them as fast as possible, learn from them as fast as possible, and then move on. That's pretty good advice for just everything in the universe too, not just EVE Online. Alright, so remapping. You may have already noticed there's a little remap button here, where if you click this button, it'll pull up your remapping for basically to choose what sort of things you want to favor. And each of these will have a, like I've mentioned, willpower, perception, and each of these will correspond to these, and usually they come up in groups. So usually flying a ship that's good at combat also has good combat skills that will come off of the same thing. That's not always the case, so you gotta kind of watch out and manage this stuff properly. But let's say I want to get into like shooting stuff, I can take these points away and put them in perception and willpower and, figure out all this kind of stuff. I'm not gonna do this because these remaps, I have 2 remaps available, but once I've used those 2 bonus remaps, the remap thing is on a 1-year real life cooldown. So if you decide you want to be like a guy who's really good at combat, and you remap and use, and you don't have any bonus remaps available, you have to wait a year to basically get back to where you can remap and then learn skills faster in another way. And so there's one in-game way you can manage your skills and kind of like, figure all this stuff out, and that is through the certificates tab, which you can open certification planner, and it'll come up with all the really basic stuff. I recommend doing all the core things at least up to like standard kinda before you will really even know what else to do. And this will basically let you fly your ship and put stuff on your ship and not get your ship blown up kind of really well. It's a really broad stroke general kind of sense. And you can again at any point click on these, or right click and copy stuff, or you can click on the little information tab and it'll tell you all sorts of stuff. Recommended things are pretty useful. It's like, core competency is good for everything, like I had mentioned. But these aren't really that good. These certification things are kind of almost manipulative in a way, I think. Like if you come down to defense and you wanted, I have basic armor tanking and then standard armor tanking I don't have yet because I'm not have mechanics, which is actually what I'm training. But say you want to be elite and you're like, I want that certification, armor tanking, here you go. Basically it just requires that you get these 2, which, are just the improved one down here and the elite one, which armor reinforcement, and they sort of feed off of each other, and they're really useful. But I say they're manipulative because oftentimes the very last skill, like you have a level thing which you should be familiar with at this point, 1 2 3 4 5, usually the 5th one is reserved for people that just want that little bit of edge. So in order to usually use a piece of equipment, it'll show up in the 4th one. Say I want to use a certain kind of blaster or something, it'll say, you can use the basic blaster with 1 skill point in it. You can use the advanced version of the blaster with 4 skill points in it. But this certification thing will often tell you to get all 5 skill points, even though you only need up to 4 to be able to actually equip it and have fun with it in the game. But if you're doing like serious PvPing and you just want that extra 5% of, whatever it's going to give you, then you can invest this one's going to take 2 days, 14 hours, 9 minutes of real life time to be able to actually get that like tiny little bonus. And so for the vast majority of cases, I don't really think it's worth it when you're not doing like serious PvP. But yeah, so that's an awful lot about skills, but I'm not even close to done. I've since closed the actual EVE client, the EVE game, they call it a client, it's a client, whatever, to basically show you one of the most important things about EVE Online, and that is your skill planning. Like I said before, you have to basically have a goal that you figure out whatever you want to do, and you're like, oh, I want to fly this ship and I want to be able to use these guns. Of course, you won't know that until you try it and play around with it and stuff. So I'm going to show you one of the most important parts of EVE Online that's actually not at all inside EVE Online, but it's a separate program that you can download for free called EVEMON. And just Google it. I'm not going to show you how to download and install stuff because that would be silly. Now, EVEMON uses a interesting little thing that is kind of unique to EVE Online that's called an API key. So when you run it, there won't be a character here initially. But you can come up here and go to File, Add API Key, and follow the link to this website, put in your information. I'm not entirely sure that you can do this in the 14-day like trial. I think you have to have an activated account to do this, but I didn't learn about it until months after I had been playing for a while, and I wish I had known about it before I started. I would almost recommend downloading this first, but getting it early enough in the game will basically have the same results. So you put in your API key, and what that'll do is basically allow this program to like connect to the actual EVE Online server and take the data about your character and stream it back to this program, which is super useful. You can't actually make changes to your character, the stuff inside the game, using this program, but you can basically get the details about your character, which is super useful because there's nothing inside of the game client that allows you to do what this program can do, and that's basically what I'm going to show you like right now. So it's a really useful thing, not only just to be able to keep track of this, say you're not actually playing the game but you want to like see what's up, and they have these for your phone too. There's one for the Android market that's really pretty good that I think is just called Aura or something. But yeah, so what's the point of EVEMON, you may ask? The point is mostly to go into this. Your plans, and these plans, what they're referring to are skill training plans. So you come over to new plan, and we will call it balls nuts because that's a good word. And like I mentioned before, your ship is your character when you're actually playing the game, and so I kind of looked at it after gaining enough experience to be like, oh well, I want to try and play this kind of ship, hopefully have some idea of what you want to be able to do in the game. And so your ship is your character. So I came over to the ship browser first of all and was like, well, I want to be able to have a cruiser, and you basically come down and choose which kind of cruisers you want. And my most recent one was the Galente Vexor, which once you click on this, it'll give you the description and come up with this stuff. And you can use the skill bonus tab to sort of determine what that ship is used for. So 5% bonus to medium hybrid turret damage, and 10% bonus to drone hit points and damage, and also mining, but I'm not using them for mining. So 10% bonus to drone hit points and damage sounds like, oh, I should probably be using drones, which is what I was, why I picked this one, because that's what I wanted to be able to do. And so to be able to fly this ship, you can come down here to the little required skills section, and it'll tell you have to have, it'll come up with a little tree. You have to have spaceship command to get Galente frigate. And then once you've got Galente frigate to level 4 and also spaceship command to level 3, then you can get Galente cruiser. And once you get Galente cruiser to level 2, then you can pilot the ship, right? The recommended certification stuff is for kind of what I was saying before. In this case, it's not usually manipulative. It's kind of like, well, okay, you can pilot your ship, but you can't like use shields or have it shoot things or tell it what to do without this kind of stuff. So core competency, like I mentioned, basically is good for everybody. It just gives you things like allows you to attach things to your ship and allows them to be fired well if in the case of a turret. Armor tanking, because this is an armor based ship, they recommend you have armor tanking, which when you come down will tell you all the skills and stuff that you need. And then combat drone control, right? Because it's a drone boat, so you have, you want some drones in it, you should probably have all this stuff. And you can add things individually by right clicking and going plan drones, or and you can find all this kind of stuff. Initially though, I recommend just clicking the add all to plan button. And so because I'm doing a character that already has all this stuff, this button is grayed out. But so you just add that over to your little plan, and it'll come up and be like, what priority do you want them? Which ones do you want to be able to do first? And that's important if you're like, you can train to be really good at shooting stuff with a certain kind of gun, but then you basically just sit in the station waiting to be able to fly the ship that you're attaching that gun to. So knowing the gun skill first really isn't that useful. So, if you want to be able to play the game, choose the skills that actually help you play the game first, like being able to get into the ship before, equipping it. Because then at least you can fly around, do missions of lower levels and stuff. So, just for the sake of example, we'll add that to the plan here, and it comes up and says, these skills will take 2 days, 2 hours, and all this kind of stuff. And like I'd mentioned before, it gives you the primary skills and the secondary skills. Look at that. Isn't that so cool? Right? Because that allows you to manage the amount of training time that it takes. So once you have some skills in here, you come over to this handy little tab called Optimize Attributes. Click! And it comes up with 3 options that say, use the remapping points that I set up, which is sort of a manual thing. I'll get into that in a little bit. Use the attributes that would be best for the first year of this plan. And remember, like I said before, the cooldown on your remapping is a year. So they take that into account here. If you've got bonus ones, then you can make stuff even faster, with, of course, the sacrifice of your bonus. And then basically this one is kind of like, how stupid have I been in the past? Attributes that would have been best for what I have trained so far, is basically like I click it and it's always like, you should have been doing everything differently. But so for this example, we're going to use this middle one, ones that would be best for this plan, right? So it comes up and it says, well, the primary is memory, so you want that to be high, and you want perception to be the second highest, and it takes into account your implants and stuff as well, which is super useful. Right? So you've got this figured out, and then it actually tells you, like, if you leave things as they are, it'll take 2 days, 2 hours, 5 minutes, and 38 seconds, like I had mentioned before. But if you change it to these attributes, then you can train it in 1 day, 15 hours, 40, and basically it'll recap everything. So it'll give you these skills 10 hours, 16 minutes, and 32 seconds better than your current skills. So I can reset to current, which is intelligence memory, which is good for mining and stuff, or I can use the optimized ones to come up with perception and memory. Like, oh right, of course, they are perception memory, so that saves me 10 hours. And this is just one tiny little thing, right? This is only a 10-day thing, and like I had mentioned, some of the skills take like 30 real days. And so if you have it taking 30 real days, you can take, a couple points and put it into that, and it'll make it take, 24 days or something. I don't actually know the math, but you can save like a week of your whole real life doing stuff by using this program. And so that's why I'm showing it to you. Balls nuts first year. Yeah, like that. Hopefully this sort of has an impact. You're like, oh yeah, this is what would separate players that have a lot of fun with the game from people that, just sort of tool around and play it and they're like, I played it, I didn't really get it. Like, and the complexity of the game is what makes it great. And so hopefully by breaking down that complexity in this video, you guys can understand why it's so fun and, why it's worth getting into.
Editor's note: I realized upon editing this video that I haven't actually shown you any good reason to play EVE Online, so I've linked a video in the description that demonstrates a really awesome PvP fight that hopefully makes your mouth water.
Alright, so you can go back into this little ship browser and do a little bit of an advanced thing here. So we'll basically take the same ship. We'll do a heavy assault ship, Galente Ishtar, I believe it is, which is the same drone boat, but it's like the higher level one, and so it comes up with a lot more required skills and certificates and stuff. So we'll add these to the plan with a priority level of 2, because that's how I'm going to do it, right? So when you come back into the little plan menu, these priority things, like I had mentioned before, so these ones here are the priority 1 ones. So if you want to get into this ship faster, then set these ones to be able to to the ones that go first, so you can get into the ship faster. And then once those ones are done, you can train these ones and then get into the next ship, sort of the bigger, better version of that ship, and then run harder missions and get more money and more stuff, right? So that's the progression to the game. Usually, in virtually every other game in the universe, that's taken care of you inside of the game. It's just like, choose your race and your class, and then you'll basically always get the same skills at the same level as you go. And by allowing it to be customizable in this way, they make it really hard for people to learn and understand, but once they get it, it's a totally different, unique gaming experience that's virtually better in every way, other than that you have to learn how to do it. There's variation here: willpower, perception, willpower, intelligence, memory, going on all in this one list. So when you go to this optimized results tab, you can see, attributes that would be best for the first year of this plan. And it came up virtually the same, but a little bit different. Because these ones are perception, willpower, perception, memory, perception. So the memory perception takes up the majority of the list. So it's saying I should prioritize memory a little bit and let one of my implants take care of this empty space up here to get this one a little bit higher, because they kind of swap back and forth between being primary and secondary. And also intelligence memory, that so the memory helps with this one a little bit. It actually adds 18 hours for this one skill, but then takes away, a total of way more than that in the collective grouping of all of the other skills. Right, this whole plan here, basically what I have currently versus what I have like optimized, would save me 17 days of real life time. And that's very significant, especially when you're enjoying or trying to enjoy a game, but also a game that uses a subscription. That's half of a subscription month, being able to play something that you wanted to be able to play instead of waiting to be able to play that thing. So it's really, really significant. Now, the reason I brought this in was that you can basically take a certain skill. Let's sort them by memory. Sure, okay, so memory perception. So let's say, for the sake of example, all of my skills are put in memory perception. And so from here to here, that's perfect. That'll go as fast as it possibly can. But after that, then it kind of breaks down, and the skills kind of go off your implants, and if you have any points distributed into whatever it is. So you can basically manage those remaps that I talked about as well, by coming up here to this little toggle remapping point. So you click that, and then above whatever the skill you put, you can do remapping not computed, use the attributes optimizer. So you can double click on it, and it'll, just tell it to optimize to whatever you're doing from this point down. So if you've got those bonus remaps, or if you just want to train something and then in a year, like, make these, several year-long plans and have your usually you won't be able to predict what you want to do that far into the future, but still the option is there, and using those bonus remaps could be super useful for cutting down even more time off of a training queue. So with these remapping points, if you have enough of them, there's no reason why you couldn't go memory perception here, perception, willpower. Really useful, and hopefully this tool alone will be able to give you the tools that you need to crack through the little learning wall and sort of, see into the other side and see what you want to be able to do. But you can add skills to a plan through other things as well. Like, you can come to your items and be like, well, I want to be able to use this thing, and in the same sort of way, these required skills will show up there. So if you want to use this mod in whatever ship, you can set up plans to be exactly as precise as you want them to be. So the last thing I wanted to show you is another outside program outside of the game that lets you kind of figure stuff out. So we've got the skills stuff taken care of. Hopefully the basic stuff of the game of just being able to activate stuff and playing is all clear to everybody. Yeah, there's two other programs that you can use, and basically what these programs do is allow you to put mods inside certain ships and, equip the ships in the ways that you want to try, and it'll tell you the math and the statistics and the numbers of how good your ship is going to be. So in that same sort of realm, I use one called EFT 2.15 or and then there's another one called EveHQ. I'll have to look back into that one. I used to have it, but I never got the hang of it. But so when you open this little program up, it basically has all the kind of ships and stuff. That Vexor that I was showing you my skill training for, this is the setup that I have tentatively selected based on the math and the numbers and all the stuff. When you're actually playing Eve, when you click the fitting window, all this stuff on the side is the same stuff that shows up in that fitting window. It just, in this program here, sort of tells you where it's coming from, all in one kind of convenient place. And you can change skills as well to see how much each skill will give you mathematically, assuming that you can equip all of these things anyway. The one thing that this program doesn't really do that I kind of wish it would is it doesn't seem to tell you that can't go there. So I've seen builds for things that people shared with me, and I was like, that's impossible. You can't equip that piece of equipment to that ship. And that just kind of comes from experience as well. But if you're doing a large ship, you probably shouldn't equip small equipment to it, and if you're doing a small ship, you can't equip large equipment to it, so there's no kind of way to set that up. So you can learn all sorts of things. So we'll go find my ship again, cruisers, where to go, Vexor. So you can right click and show info just like in that, and it'll come up with the same info tab. It graphically looks a little different, but it's the same info tab as in the actual game. So parameters, the description, the requirements that you need to be able to fly the thing, and all that kind of stuff. And so you can use this to figure out, you're like, oh, the rig slots are medium. It's one word, medium rig slots. So the rig slots are medium, so if I wanted to equip something to the rig slot here, I would find a ship medium rig, so the medium rigs would apply here, and that's how you can sort of figure stuff out. And yeah, that's really it. There's no reason for me to give you an example other than that, because half of the fun of this stuff is just figuring things out. You're like, well, I want to, use different kinds of drones, so light, medium, heavy, and they all show up down here in all of the things that exist inside the game, and you can compare them yourself and kind of figure out what you want. And so, oftentimes you can do this first and kind of figure out, you're like, I want this ship with these, this equipment, um, and then go back into EVEMON and plan the skills to be able to do that, and then go back into the game and set your stuff to work up to that goal, and then you achieve that goal and you feel awesome because you have this new spaceship that's really cool, and you know you blow stuff up and you feel great, and you like, I can join a corporation and then fight PvP and massive groups of players shooting each other and stuff. It's really kind of up to you to play the game how you want, but that's really different than other games, because most of the time that just leaves people sort of milling about going, I don't know what I want to do. But choosing something, even if it turns out that that's not what you want to do, is ultimately better than just sitting there like not doing it. Yeah, so there's that. I'll close all this stuff. Haunter is awesome. Just wanted you to know that. Like I had mentioned, my name is Jax. You can contact me in the comment section in this video. If you have really specific questions, you can tweet them at Geminite55, which my username on YouTube is also Geminite55. But if you tweet them to me, they come straight to my phone that I have right here. You can hear me tapping my fingers against it. So if you have really specific questions, I will be more than happy to answer them for you. Hopefully this has been a beneficial experience to your EVE playing life. And yeah, have fun in space shooting stuff.